Welcome everyone to week 6 of Kidlit International. It's week 4, season 6. Get my words right, of Kidlit International. And today we're going to be talking about editors, the editing process, and what role ghostwriters play. So the floor is open. Who would like to begin? Karen, we'll start with you.
Okay. It depends which hat you wear when you're a self-publisher. You are the editor and everything is on you. You can get manuscript assessments, which can help because you have fresh eyes on your story. But I did find through the Our Shell Harbour journey, the story took a long time, and one thing that really benefited was the original illustrator let me down, and the story had sat for a long time, and that breathing space let me see it with fresh eyes, and I knew exactly where to cut. I had the structure, but there is a saying, you can kill your darlings, and I did. And then you were kind enough to Zoom with me one time, Jennifer, and I read the story to you. And I don't know if you can remember, I would go, oh, that can go now, or that can go. Just
Yeah.
having been able to read it to someone else who's a professional aloud helped me mentally see where to go. And then the other side of the fence is when you're ready, your manuscript needs to be ready to submit. If it's not polished in Australia, they won't look at it. Mm. So you need to be aware of, of where to go. Maybe you get an assessment, you have a critique group, and you work on it and you let it sit, and you have to give it its best chance. It needs to be ready. But then on the other hand, I've learnt all of that. But then with my recent acceptance with Wombat Books, the publisher came back to me and said, cut and edit. And sorry, I've got a tickle in my throat. She gave me a 1 or 2 line example. And then it was up to me to cut and edit. And so I did it. And she was right. It's better. So sometimes you can't see through the trees to see what you need to do. It's like you need to cull, just like you trim a garden, but you need to know where. And the bones of the story have to be what shines. And current project I'm working on at the moment, that's where I'm at. So I was actually doing that before I got on here. But I get in my head and I go, I hope what I'm doing is right because I've got nobody to ask. Because I tend to work alone, but I'm getting more confident in what I'm doing, and I'm saying to myself, back yourself. Yeah. So
So you edit yourself rather than pay an editor.
yeah, but then I know my weaknesses, and they are punctuation and spacing and just making it nice and neat and beautiful. I'm no good at that. So once I'm happy with the story, I would get it edited for those things.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Holly, you write longer books. I think Karen's is probably more in reference to the picture book. You write longer books. How are you with the editing process?
Well, I find it's changed a lot over time. Initially, I didn't have any software that I used, and now I will use Pro Writing Aid first. I just run it through that. and check a lot of different things. But I just keep that on my word processing all the time, and kind of like first line, and then like fix any of those, anything they suggest. And then I'll go on to at least 2 editors. Now, when I did my first book, I just had one type, more like the structural type of edit. And I knew that I was supposed to get at least one, or sorry, I knew I was supposed to get at least 2, but the thing that I would do differently is I would have one of the other types, like developmental, or add a proofread. I would say and add a proofread. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do 2 or 3 edits next time. I know the next book, because it is a novel and because it is because emotion, because it's just so close to me, I know that I'm probably going to need the most editing of all on that one. And I think that's is so much a part of it too, depending, like, what are you writing, and kind of how, like, for me, I left that one a long time. Like, I've had to, I just have found through writing, first of all, I thought, okay, everything's going to be, just like clicking along. I'm going to be just getting these books out super fast. But then I got stuck in the emotion. And now that I've got several edits of this novel. And so that is going to be an entirely different process. And I'm really looking forward to jumping back in and really working on it now. But I really had to get a lot of stuff out of my head before. So
That's where editors are beneficial, isn't it? Yeah.
Very much so.
Lauren, in your experience, have you gone down the editorial process?
Oh, yes, I have. And I'm going to put it down to, and apologies for the lag of my computer. There are a few technical issues at my end. So firstly, with picture books, I've been in acquisitions a couple of times with publishers with my picture books. And it's interesting because I agree with Karen, where there's so many different ways of having your picture book a picture book manuscript assessed and edited. But I must admit, I had this one particular story. I did an assessment with a publisher, and then I attended Kidlit Vic, and then I also have my own critique group, and all 3 said the story should be written from a different perspective. Now, the one that got into acquisitions originally was the assessment with the publishing house. However, I see that as, well, good on me. I can write this story 3 or 4 different ways. So it wasn't necessarily, oh gosh, I've done all these edits. I saw it as, heck yeah, I can do it 3 different ways, 4 different ways. So that was good. But I've also written a novel that's in the Queensland Writers Publishable competition at the moment. It's about 75,000 words. And I did actually get an independent editor, to have a look at it structurally. That is a very different process to picture books. I also paid a independent editor for my chapter books. That's more similar to my novel experience. And then also I have an editor for my screenplays. That's a entirely different kettle of fish as well. So I think it depends on what you're writing. It depends on your expectation, because you've got to also be okay with the finished product as well. And so many people have opinions. So be open to everything, because you'll learn something.
Absolutely. You do learn it. It's a learning process, regardless of what road you take with it. Chris, what's your experience?
Mine comes from a slightly different angle, in that everything I've done for 30 years now has effectively been edited, very rarely by a professional editor, because whether it's in PR, writing a press release, clients have one editing that, my newspaper articles, obviously there's the newspaper editor. It does depend on the book. If the children's books I thought would need the most editing, actually they've always had the least. What I tend to do is have a couple of people who I've got to know really well and trust, and the trust part of this is the most important. If you don't trust an editor, you're not going to listen to what they recommend. So you've got to build a relationship with them. You've also got the problem, if you're self-publishing, an editor costs money, and every part of that self-publishing journey, we'll try and avoid spending money. So people have to make a choice. I'm like Holly. Everything I write, whether it's my books, my newspaper articles, or anything, goes straight through Pro Writing Aid before I do anything, because it's the best grammar checker and spell checker. I'm quite amazed I don't make as many mistakes when I'm typing as I thought I used to do. But that might also be a little case of everyone's got so used to using a spell checker on Word or something like that. So finally having some software that's 1,000% better, you're actually seeing it was the spell checker I was using that was picking stuff up that actually wasn't there. So you stop having to question yourself about, is this right or wrong? When it comes to editing the actual stories and where I'm coming from on the angle of the way I'm telling them, I've got one friend who's a very, very good editor, and is able to say, hang on, look at this from a different way. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but it is that whole trust thing. With an editor, if I don't trust them, it will never work. My first book, which went through a publisher, they came back on the editing with absolutely nothing changing, which was my first alarm bell, going, hang on, first book, you're meant to be editing this. And to this day, I still question whether or not they even looked at it to edit it. And that's the other problem people go through. Whether you're self-publishing, whatever route you're taking, that editor has to be trustworthy. And as we all know, just do a Google search and you'll find quite a few that probably aren't. So to me, it's be very careful about who you use. Remember that just about every piece of work you've ever done in your life has been edited by somebody somewhere. And even if it's teachers marking your work, really. So don't worry about it. Do find people you can trust and accept the fact that it's our little baby. And sometimes we can get confused as to, should we be telling it in that way or this way? And advice is normally well received and very good, as long as it's done in the right way.
Absolutely. Some good tips there. Emma, as an illustrator, you wouldn't necessarily go down the same path. But I guess what I'm thinking in listening to this, as an illustrator, do you work on your own or do you get anyone to check, or like how would this translate with you?
Um, so when you're working in children's books, which is mostly what I do as an illustrator, the editing process, it touches all parts of the creation of the book. One of the questions I often get asked by new authors who are working with me is at what point can they start working with an illustrator? How edited does the manuscript need to be? I think like it doesn't have to be 100% perfect if you're self-publishing, but you've got to sort of be at that polishing stage where there's not a lot changing, because there's a lot of storytelling that your illustrator can add visually, that works in partnership with your manuscripts. So I think a lot of editors, particularly when they're helping edit picture books, can help sort of show maybe you don't need to put that in words. That's something the illustrator can show. And then this is something that you can demonstrate in words and maybe the illustrator won't show. Because as an illustrator, I've learned that I can't illustrate everything literally that's said in the words. I sort of construct my illustration to be in partnership with the script. So I think that's a really great place where the editors can come in who have worked specifically with children's books, to sort of get that, to sort of help what do you maybe you don't need in the words, what you do need in the words, and then what will be visually. So I hope that's helps to add a little extra there as the non-word girl here. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
editing is
that's really interesting.
important to everything. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah,
add a little bit about an experience of editing Big Due to an illustrator? Have a new book coming out, and the illustrator is phenomenal. And even though it's fictional, it's based on fact. And the illustrators worked with a scientific group. She wants the illustrations to be as true as they can be, and also the words. So she picked up things that I had written because it was fiction that I had to change. Now, the publisher didn't. The illustrator has picked up these little things, and I actually had to change the main character from the female to the male. And it's due to this illustrator, and the story is so much stronger and so much better because it's a picture book. But it's due to the illustrator not just taking the words at face value, but going deep in layers to illustrate and trying to do the best she can by the story. So she's, through her actions, made the story 100 times better.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really important point. I think that's where really great collaborations come in. That's where I try as a publisher to match the illustrator with the author, because I know those things will happen.
Yeah.
It's conversations, and it's giving the author what they want, but also discovering other things. And I know, Emma, you're coming across this with something we're doing together. That's involved a lot of collaboration and design work, and it's just it's all a learning process, isn't it? Can we just quickly
It takes
talk
a village
about
to make a book.
it takes a village? It certainly does. It certainly does, Emma. Ghostwriting, and I just wanted to touch on that because people ask me about ghostwriters, not so much for picture books, but for chapter books and YA books and adult books. Has anyone used a ghostwriter?
No,
No? No?
not at all.
I was just really curious. I have employed a ghostwriter for somebody recently, and they loved the aspect, the collaboration, because the author knew what they wanted to say, and they kind of had nutted out chapters, but they couldn't find the words themselves.
Yeah.
So I lined them up with a ghostwriter who had a conversation and helped her write it. And she was intrigued by the whole process. And because some people, I think, there's a lot of misconception about ghostwriting. People going, oh, but it's not my story.
I do
But
know.
if the ghostwriting's done properly, it still is the author's story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I have heard, I don't know if it's true, when celebrities get published, I've heard that there's often a ghost. I'm not saying all or whatever, but there's often a ghostwriter behind them because, like what you were saying, they may have the story, but the ghostwriter helps get it into the right format and structure and editing and things like that. Yeah.
I hear that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I often hear that as well. Yeah. But that's what a good ghostwriter does. They have a conversation with the person. They get to know their voice. They learn their voice, what they want to go, where they want to go with their story, what they want to do. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's a huge production, but my experience has all been positive. I don't know if and there's probably people out there who haven't had such good experiences. you know, if I wanted to write something on a subject that I'm interested in but know nothing about, I would look at employing a ghostwriter if I really had the passion for it, because I know I couldn't do it justice, but that person could. And I think that's one of the beautiful roles that they play. So if you ever employ one, let me know so we can have this discussion again, because there's a bit of controversy out there about ghostwriters, but you know, mine's just all been
Do you think
positive.
it?
So sorry.
Do you think it adds accessibility to, like, if you're writing a memoir, a biography, or you have
Yeah,
like that storytelling passion,
yeah,
but maybe you just need the support to put words to paper, like that's
yeah,
sort of where ghostwriting comes in. It adds, it allows, more people to tell stories and
yeah,
produce them in the form, like, because a book is just another vessel for telling stories. It's just
yeah,
another format.
yeah,
And that, yeah, like, where you can see a lot of value in ghostwriting is helping, like, it gets more stories out there into the world and allows people who might not have the writing skills they feel necessary for a book, but have like that story passion there still.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They've got the passion and the idea, but they don't know how to produce it. Yeah, yeah. And like you said, that's where the village comes in, isn't it? It's that village works in lots of good ways. So, um, any final words on editing? If I were a new author coming to you for advice, what would you tell me, Karen? Final words
Get your work edited by a professional.
by a professional. Chris?
Yeah, I'd go with that completely. It's great self-editing, particularly at the beginning, but you need that set of eyes that can give you the advice you need, that you're too close to see yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Lauren?
Be specific, because there's so many different genres too, right? Picture books, chapter books, novels, screenplays. You have to do your research. I agree with everyone when they say make sure you do your due diligence, check online,
Yeah.
because there's development editors, structure edits, grammar edits. Yeah, but don't let it stop you. Don't let it scare you. Still got to do it. Pursue the dream.
That's right. Yeah. Emma, last words?
Because with any creative work, getting feedback is, it can be a little bit confronting. Like, yeah, and you might have that gut instinct of like, no, I don't want that to be changed, or it's like, creating is so emotional. So if you get an edit back, give yourself some time to like to sit with it, and process it, and you can like come back to it a little bit later, because that's perfectly normal. The emotional, because I've had some authors I've worked with sort of have to process some edits, and even maybe seeing some first drafts of illustration, like the picture, like the vision they have had in their heads, like is like they love what I've done, but it's so different to what they were imagining. So it's okay to, sit with changes, because because it book goes through many hands and it's very malleable. And what happens at the end is sort of is that collective effort. And I think that's what makes creating books really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, that collective effort. Holly, final words from you?
I really think that the trust part is so important, and just
Yeah,
like you're going to get so much more from the edit than what you can imagine. It's just so vital to your book.
yeah. Trusting someone with your work is, I think, essential, really essential. It may take you a while to find that person, but once you've got them, hang on to them. Yeah, so lots of good tips today. Trust your editor or ghostwriter. It is a collective effort. Creating, as you said, Emma, is emotional. It's an emotional journey from that very first word through to holding that book. It's on so many levels. It is emotional. So thank you again, everyone, for your wisdoms and insights. your expert knowledge, and we will chat all again next week.
Thank you.
You.